Kimberly and TJ fight over their apartment, Gino and Jasmine go to the world's worst couples therapist, and Statler does stuff that if I talked about here I would get demonetized. Let's jump into it. I must be a clairvoyant too, because I saw this relationship falling apart from episode 1. They actually said relationship instead of relationship. Very clever. This girl is insufferable. She drives me nuts. It's like she believed every TikTok where they say, there was no hashtag, so this message is for you, and just adopted every personality it gave her. What does that mean? I'm too old to use TikTok, so I don't know what that means. In her defense, I get really cranky and unreasonable and lose most perspective when I'm exhausted from traveling halfway around the world. I don't know, I think we're being a little too hard on her. I understand the criticism, but I really see two sides to this. From my understanding, it sounds like he's not the one that wants this apartment to begin with. It sounds like TJ is perfectly content with living with his family and Kimberly downstairs in all one unit. And if this whole apartment thing is just for her and her comfort, and he's the one building it and paying for it and dealing with the contractors there in India, and then your partner who you've been doing this for flies in and immediately starts criticizing everything, or you feel like she's nitpicking, it can feel pretty invalidating and frustrating that you've put in all this work and time and energy, and instead of showing more appreciation or patience through the process, she just gets really mad and flips out on him. So I can understand that from his perspective, and it sounds like some viewers online, her behavior can seem very unreasonable and maybe even unjustified. But I don't think a lot of these commenters have really considered and put themselves in Kimberly's shoes. There's the more obvious stress-based explanation, where she flew halfway across the world and left her family and her whole life behind, finally to get here, probably very tired, very stressed out, very anxious about what things are going to happen. She sees the apartment and realizes that it's not what she imagined. That is a huge amount of stress and uncertainty all placed on one thing, the apartment. So for that not to go right and to not match her expectations, that can feel very destabilizing and threaten your idea of how comfortable or how well this whole situation is going to go down. I also suspect that there is a deeper trauma being triggered there. She's been saying from the beginning that she wanted to have a more active role in planning the wedding, and she also wanted a more active role in them building this apartment together. But in both cases, whether it's because of TJ specifically or because of Indian culture, TJ has been telling her to not worry, don't think about it too much, we'll handle it all, it's on our side, don't worry yourself about it. So when she shows up and sees that things are not what she expected with the apartment, I could understand if she felt like, hey, you told me not to worry about this, you told me you got it, you told me to not be involved, and then look at it, you didn't do it right. If you're gonna tell me to not worry, then you need to show me that there was a good reason for me to not worry. But if I come here and it's messed up, then I should have worried. I should have been more involved. This could have been done better if you let me be involved. So now not only is the apartment kind of messed up, but I'm also annoyed that this whole thing could have been prevented if you didn't keep telling me to just chill. However, I'm not sure that this is entirely TJ's fault either. I wonder if TJ sees her being worried about the apartment and the wedding and that sort of thing as her being a control freak or a bridezilla or something like that. It could seem like Kimberly comes to the apartment and is making a mountain out of a molehill and is really just a control freak and is upset that things aren't exactly how she wants them to be. And it could be that that's what TJ was thinking this whole time when he was telling Kimberly to relax and don't worry about it. But at least from what I saw, I don't think that's the best characterization of Kimberly's position. I think it could be more likely that she's annoyed with him that he continuously pushes her away and tells her not to worry about things, promising that he'll do everything right and up to her level of competent standards, but then ultimately delivers a subpar product, then making her feel like he is not very trustworthy or that she is not in good hands in believing him. The house is raggedy, but it can be fixed. I'm wondering why she hasn't seen pictures prior to this. He probably hid them. Didn't he tell her the place was done or something? I don't recall exactly what he told her, but the fact that she didn't know what state the apartment was in does suggest there's something a little bit more going on here than, oh, she's just a control freak. It could be that he's a very dismissive person and just doesn't really consider how she feels and routinely has a pattern of just, don't worry about it. You're scared. Don't be scared, don't worry about it. If I was in Kimberly's shoes and I'm talking to TJ across the world, talking about where to put the door in the bathroom, and maybe he says, the contractors aren't gonna like that, or he says, okay, but then later on the contractors put it in the wrong place. I don't see why TJ couldn't call her up the next day and say, they put it in the wrong place, sorry, we're gonna have to, adjust our expectations, or something that communicates what's going on. But the fact that she doesn't know that, and she shows up, and everything that she thinks is going to be there is not there, now we're adding a sense of lying on top of the incompetence. I don't know if she feels betrayed or lied to or not taken seriously, but all these things together would contribute to a feeling that I can't trust my partner. And they're telling me that I should trust them and relax, but they're showing me that I can't, and that's their fault. Entitled and privileged much? No, I don't think entitled and privileged. Did she say hurtful things? Sure. Did she get really heated and contribute to the fight? Yeah. Is that because she's entitled and privileged? I don't think so. She might be, but I don't think what we saw was evidence of that. We need to talk about Nikola. This manchild is insufferable. He clearly has no idea how to act in a relationship. He dismisses everything she brings up, and he just sits there trying to shut her up or tell her she's being too emotional. And he got mad at her because she picked up the cute cats? Go back to church because you're clearly happier there. Is that a sick burn? I don't know, Nikola, I understand the criticism. Well, let's be clear and really lay it out just to make sure we're all on the same page. The chief criticism I would levy against Nikola from what we've seen is that he has a clear pattern of minimizing her feelings. She says, hey, I'm worried about this, communicating to him in some way that she's a 6 out of 10. And he won't say that she's wrong per se, or that it's a completely made up problem, but he'll say, we'll deal with this later, we got plenty of time, just chill out about it, and he tries to say, what you're feeling is not a 6, it really should be a 2 out of 10. And if anyone's done that to you in your life, you know how frustrating that is. You ever been really mad at someone and then they yell at you to just calm down, and then you just did calm down? No, that never happens, that doesn't work. So when he keeps saying, don't worry about this stuff, it's not a big deal, we have it later, let's not deal with it now, it doesn't inspire a lot of confidence in the person who has a legitimate worry that this is ever going to get resolved. Especially in that last conversation where he told her to not cry and to not care about these sort of things.
Oh my God, Meisha, I cry now.
And he even said, in a moment of what I think was pure resentment,
you know how many things I can tell you, Meisha, that I don't like? 10 hours makeup, all the messy clothes, Meisha, but I don't say nothing. Maybe you need to change your attitude toward me and not just to blame me all the day.
The good old non-insult insult. Do me a favor, go try this out with your partner next time. Next time they have some minor request about you, just tell them, hey, I don't complain every time you smell like absolute dog shit. Your BO, your putrid, disgusting smell, I don't talk about that. I'm above that. I don't care how disgusting and terrible you smell. I suspect that since Meisha on day one was pushing about the family in a way that offended him, and that I don't think she has the gentlest startups to conversation, she can be a little hostile out of the gate. I wonder if all these things have added up to a feeling of resentments that Nikola already has towards Meisha. Enough resentments where he may not really care about Misha's feelings anymore and may be more interested in trying to make her feel bad in retaliation. So still kind of manchildy, still needs more experience, but I do think that he's not necessarily with the right match and he may be pretty fed up with her by now. So not that that excuses his behavior, but I think that might be a factor in what we're seeing. Statler gives off 80s stoner Sean Penn vibes, and it's not working for her. It felt like 2 8th graders, and Statler is like the predatory football quarterback. So uncomfortable to hear. Vulgar, rude, predatory, gross, objectifies Dempsey, pressures her to have sex, disrespectful, and creepy. Plans on moving in without even meeting Dempsey, let alone being invited to move in. An ocean of red flags. Yeah, that's how it looked to me. Bringing up sex every 30 seconds by yourself can already be annoying to some people, but when you bring it up that frequently with someone you just met in person, and when they clearly say, we're not going to kiss and we're especially not going to do anything in bed, like, hey, chill, and she doesn't stop and she keeps talking about it and seeming disappointed and bringing it up and just over and over again, yeah, that doesn't sound like consent. I'm not gonna get into a whole conversation about consent right now, but for anyone on the fence on this particular topic, I would ask you to go rewatch all those scenes, except this time, imagine Statler was a man, and tell me how comfortable you would feel then. Did Jasmine and Gino go to a child therapist? That's the only explanation I have for all the toys in the background. Yeah, I didn't notice the toys past the frustration that I had with that terrible therapist. Now, before I explain just how terrible this therapist seems, I will say that it's more typical that in couples therapy, you would have an intake session, or you might have a couple intake sessions where you don't get into it too much, you're just introducing people and, getting used to people's histories before you really dig in. So not only are they presumably not doing that because this is a TV show and their therapy session is televised, but even if it was a one-off thing, it could have been an hour or an hour and a half or whatever it was, and then we saw 3 minutes of it. So there's really not enough information, and this is already an unusual enough situation where I don't really know how much of my criticism applies to the actual therapist and how much of it was biased from what we saw on TV. But with that caveat, generally speaking, a couples therapist should be on the side of the couple and not take sides over one of the other. Generally speaking, you want both parties to feel comfortable and to feel safe and cultivate a space where you can talk openly about your problems and hopefully grow in compassion and love and depth in the relationship with each other.
So you're not the one with the anger issues, right. She is the one. So what can you do so that it doesn't blow out of proportion? You know what I'm saying? Like if she starts, somebody has to put the fire down. Can you do that?
So again, it was just a snippet, but it felt very unprofessional that she seemed to totally take Jasmine's side and saying, yeah, okay, Jasmine is the one that gets really angry, but Gino, how could you be the one to just calm everything down? When she's triggered and mad and screaming at you and saying really hurtful things, what could you do to just make her better? What? I assume that unless she's really working some angle that wouldn't make sense to us based off what we see on camera. I'm not a therapist. I don't pretend to be a therapist. That's what she may be trying to say is, hey, we just talked about Jasmine for half an hour and how she can calm down and manage her emotions in these situations. So now that we talked about her for a long time, now let's talk about you, Gino, so Jasmine can feel like this is more 50-50. And let's ask Gino how he can help Jasmine calm down. And if that is the case, then yes, that is helpful. But at the very least, if you're going to go down that road with Gino, you gotta be really careful to not make it seem like this is now Gino's responsibility to manage Jasmine's emotional volatility. Not only is that making Gino responsible for Jasmine's problem, but it also does Jasmine a disservice. I talked about this a little bit in my last video about Jasmine where I talked about complex PTSD. I'm not diagnosing her. I was just using it as an opportunity to talk about a topic and raise awareness about complex PTSD. But as I talked about in that video, it's not uncommon for people that suffer from complex PTSD or other people who suffer from these emotional flashbacks that can be very explosive and destructive and hurtful to the people around them to carry a lot of shame about their behavior and who they are and how messed up they are. And then you go to a therapist, and that therapist goes to your partner, who you're already worried about, at least a little bit, because you've been kind of a jerk to them. And the therapist turns to them and says, hey, how could you fix her behavior? And how could you take responsibility? Because, she's just a triggered mess. She's not going to be the one to actually, take ownership or accountability for actions. So, Gino, how could you fix her problems? It's not fair to Gino, but it validates and reinforces the belief that they're messed up, they're a lost cause, and they can't do anything about it. So while yes, in those intense triggered moments, during the middle of the fight, if it's a bad trigger, then yeah, all the therapy in the world may not be able to help Jasmine in that moment break herself out. But the response to that can't be, oh, then you're just not in control of your whole life and we just need other people to manage you. No, they're still responsible for their actions. She's the one with the destructive behavior. She's the one hurting other people. It's not her fault that she has traumas, but that doesn't mean it's not her responsibility. So if a therapist were to tell her that it's not her responsibility or it doesn't really matter, we need to look for other people to manage you, that is not right. It's not right to Gino, and it's not right to Jasmine in the long run. Again, I don't know if that's actually what the therapist was saying, but just in the edit we saw, it definitely looked like that.
Gino, you might get her best self by bonding with her intimately. You know what I'm saying?
That's all I've got today. Thanks everyone for watching, and let me know what you thought about these couples in the comments below. What did you think of Kimberly and TJ? Do you think we're seeing some resentment from Nikola, and do you think that's justified or unjustified? What did you think of Gino and Jasmine's therapist? And do you think Statler was being too pushy with Dempsey? Actually, I don't know if I want to ask that question. I think even if Dempsey said that she was okay with it, it would still be too pushy. Anyway, thanks for watching, and if you like this video and want to see other videos like this, make sure to hit subscribe, hit the like button, ring the bell for notifications, and every comment helps the algorithm. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one. If you like this video, check out my most recent Reddit React video here, or check out my 90 Day Fiance playlist here.